Deal.
Waiting to join up playback. No, hold on. Does not let request to join. I just had to request to join. Oh, there we go.
I got you.
Stage. All right, cool. Oh, I gotta change this to that. All right.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, March 15th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by DK. We're brought to you by BetMGM. We got a 6-game slate ahead of us. If you're playing on DraftKings, that is. Not to mention, no late swap. If you're playing on FanDuel, you don't have that Atlanta-Utah game. So lucky for you. Although, you actually have late swap. I would rather have that Atlanta game. Neither here nor there. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. I believe our Twitter handles are going to be on the screen. DK, what's up, man? How's your week?
It's been going pretty good. Happy it's Friday. This is going to be a pretty interesting slate to talk about with the no late swap, just because we do have some pretty big questionable news in some of the late games. And if we don't get that, it's going to be interesting to see how the field plays it. Like it's a pretty interesting game theory slate. I'll say that.
It's going to be a weird one. And this one feels so much like I was fine with it, whatever, last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we did that. But today, very specifically, you and I were talking about it before the show started. I wish this was a late swap slate. That Atlanta-Utah game is perfect for it.
Yeah, like this would set up to be like one of my favorite slates for sure if we had late swap, just because, you know, the Harden stuff and then the Atlanta stuff and being able to move stuff around depending on what happens. So, yeah, going to be a bit of a headache if we don't get that before lock.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I mean, I want to know if I have to get some Garrison Matthews and Wes Matthews in my life.
And some Vit Krejci and maybe Trent Forrest. Ugh.
Oh, my God. Every one of those guys sounds like a made-up basketball player.
I know.
All right, I want to see what this question is. Random question I want Josh to look into. Who is the least played regular starter throughout the season? I would guess Brook Lopez. Interesting. That is it. I mean, it's got to be a center and someone that is generally center only, because they are just going to naturally have lower ownership by default.
Like the least played starter?
Yeah, like least rostered that's out there all the time.
Oh.
I think Brook Lopez is a really good shout.
Yeah, he's like never, like I don't think I played him once this year.
Like if you're healthy and your price is normal all the time, but like then it's got to be someone that's mid-tier that plays constantly, that doesn't have any like real variation in salary. I think Brook Lopez is a really good one. No, Joval, no way, because when there are times where Joval is like extra special chalk. You get those days where, like, at the beginning of the season, if Nance was out and all of a sudden Joval's like 45% owned, those, like, that basically doesn't happen for Brook Lopez.
It also has to be a team that's like been pretty healthy too, because if they end up with missing players, you know, I'm trying to think.
I like the question.
Maybe Harrison Barnes? I don't know.
Okay. Not a guy that typically gets a lot of ownership. Yeah, it really is a testament of like which teams have been the healthiest. And I like that Sacramento shout because they are just generally
They're
healthy.
always healthy.
Yeah. I'm glancing at the team list right now.
Right. That's how I was like looking through all the teams right now.
Because you can't be too good. Like your raw point ceiling has to be low enough that you don't become a great play on small slates too. This is hard. That's a great question. That's a really good question. So like Jake DeWitt said Steph Curry. It can't be him because Steph Curry becomes popular on like a 4-gamer, whereas like Brook Lopez won't have that same sort of utility. KCP is a good answer.
Yes, that's a good one.
Dort's a decent answer, but he ends up falling into like really chalky games from time to time if anybody ends up out, where like KCP doesn't become a 24% usage guy when MPJ ends up out.
I was gonna say like Grayson Allen, but I feel like the Suns been too banged up, so like he's gotten ownership.
People want to play him every day because he makes 8 threes in a quarter half the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's one I kind of want to think about. I like that question.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I think Brooke Lopez is a really good answer.
So do I. Because it's so hard for him to become a chalk play.
Yeah, like when Giannis, if like one of the main guys is out, you're always looking to like the other two. Like Bobby Portis is always like a priority over Lopez. So
He's
like
never getting a
never gets
minutes
ownership.
bump. He's not really ever getting
No.
like a usage bump. He's not a rebounder. Like he doesn't.
Yeah.
It's really odd. It's really odd. I like that, guys. I like Gary Harris doesn't play enough, I would say.
No. Yeah. I wouldn't say he's like a regular starter.
No. I like that. I want to think about it a little bit more. That's the shit. That's a really good question. Let's get this bad boy started. That was fun. I wasn't ready for that. It's YouTube chat sneaking up on me. Congratulations, guys. I've been doing this for 6 years at Stokastic. At some point in time during this month, 6 years. I think it's like next week is my anniversary. That might be the first good question we've ever had. So congrats, guys. I really appreciate that. Phoenix Suns, 10.5-point favorites in Charlotte, 219 total. We got everybody in for Phoenix, except we're waiting on the news of Eric Gordon. He is probable, but I trust nothing with that man. He is perpetually injured. But as of right now, it looks like we're getting everybody for the Suns. 10% ownership coming into Bradley Beal, 9% ownership coming into Yusuf Nurkic. So basically, single-digit ownership. We did get 12% optimal going to Bradley Beal in the boom bust tool. If you're playing on FanDuel, remember, 5-game slate, 22% ownership coming into Yusuf Nurkic, where he's 7,100. You liking anything here for Phoenix? You would expect to like something against Charlotte, but once again, I don't feel like it's that great.
Yeah, I feel like I thought I would like this team a little bit more, but fully healthy. Again, Gordon expected to play. I think it's a lot of like secondary options. I think Nurk at 7.2K is interesting. I mean, he did play 31 minutes in the most recent game, and he didn't even play in the fourth quarter. So like he played a ton in the first half of that Boston game. He played like 20 minutes or something crazy. So I mean, his minutes have fluctuated a bit. But yeah, I think he's playable at sub 10% ownership. Any of the big three, I think, are fine with AD, Beal, Booker, all reasonable options. I don't really think I can get to like the secondary pieces like, Grayson Allen or Royce O'Neal or Gordon. Again, Gordon being back, I think hurts their minutes a little bit. So I think any of the top four guys, KD, Booker, Nurk, and Beal, are viable options, but no standouts. They're guys I wouldn't mind landing on, but I'm definitely not going to prioritize them.
Yeah, I matched the field on Beal on my first run. I have 10%. We got him projected for 10, and I'm at 5% or below on the other four main dudes. And that makes sense. I always feel like I should be getting to more Charlotte. Like they're not that slow. Their defense is terrible. But yet for some reason, every time I have a team, like every team that's going up against Charlotte just hasn't projected well for a while. And I don't really know why it's happening. I don't know. Maybe it's just bad luck and the right team choices, but I just don't ever feel like I'm getting any sort of bump from Charlotte.
Right. I feel like every game the Hornets have played in has been like both teams score like under 100 points. Like it's just like really, really gross games.
Yeah. Now the Charlotte side, worse, I guess, depending on which site you're playing on. 24% ownership to Micic on FanDuel, 16 to Trey Mann on FanDuel, and 18 to Brandon Miller on FanDuel. DraftKings has a high of 7% to either Miller or Micic, and the highest optimal rate is also 7% to Micic. So single-digit optimal, single-digit ownership, pretty much how I see it. And I'm afraid to tell you who I have the most exposure to here.
I think I might know. Is it Pokusevski?
It is Pokusevski. 9% of my lineups include Poku right now, which I didn't expect to say that this year.
I mean, I think he's an interesting tournament play though. Last game, the Hornets, they've been running like a very tight rotation recently. Eight guys only played. Poku played 26 minutes off the bench. And we know like Pokusevski is a pretty good point per minute player. I mean, we haven't seen him play a ton this year, but we know like when he was on the Thunder last year and given minutes, like he's not bad point per minute. Last game, 27 minutes, 24 fancy points, sub 4K. Yeah, I mean, we do have, THT on the slate. It's getting a ton of ownership for value, but not a ton of other like standout value plays. So I think, Pokusevski right now only getting like 2%. That's a play I would definitely want to get overweight to. As far as the rest of the team goes, no standouts. Again, Bridges is going to play his normal 40 minutes, but his price seems about right. There's other guys in that range I'd much rather get to. Like you had DeJounte Murray for a little bit more. I would just much rather have him. Micic with man back, I think is a little bit tough to get to at 6K. I know he had a good game last game, but I think that was a bit of an outlier. Nick Richards, I think, is reasonable at 5.6K. Center is always pretty loaded. So, high opportunity cost, but, he should play close to 30 minutes. I think he's like a fine option. So, the main guys are playable, but I think my favorite play is taking a shot on low-owned Pokusevski.
That feels so wrong, but I don't disagree. I mean, in my model, he's a 0.95 guy. Get him anywhere in that range, and 3,800 power forward center eligibility. It looks decent. I'd like to see the Poku Bowl matchup tonight. That should be a very interesting combination.
That'd be great
of human
to watch.
beings.
Yeah.
This is a gross game for sure. It was when we started the day the lowest owned game. I assume it still is. 55% aggregate exposure to both of these teams combined. That is unequivocally the lowest. It is not close. The next closest game is Pelicans Clippers, and that has 90 aggregate. So we're starting off this show talking about the worst options that exist. It gets better from here, guys. I promise.
Yeah, we'll get to, especially the late game is going to be the game that I think is probably the most ownership.
So schedule for the rest of the day is very easy. NBA Live Before Lock will be coming up next. They'll take you from 6 all the way up until 7 o'clock. Then this stream ends and we are exclusive on Playback. We're there right now. If you want to watch there, go to playback.tv/Stokastic. But we will be there exclusively at 7. We'll be talking first basket scores for the 7 o'clock games for sure. We'll be sweating those. We'll be talking, well, we won't really be talking all that much news because it won't be super relevant on the DK side. We'll try to help you guys out from a FanDuel perspective. We could talk some live betting, and we can just talk through some of the ownership from what we see here in these first couple games and how it starts to get unlocked. We're also going to be watching basketball games. We'll be able to have the games on with you. If you have League Pass, you can watch along with us. If you don't have League Pass, cross your fingers, hope that you can acquire one of our 40 VIP passes that we could hand out so that you could watch the games along with us. Zero latency, by the way. We're all watching the exact same stream. It's super fun. It's a Friday, too. I ain't got shit to do. We can hang out for a while. So come join us, stokastic.tv/playback. Link is in the chat and description if that's more your bag. The Miami Heat are 8-point favorites in Detroit, 215 total. Now, Miami is relatively healthy in that the guys that are normally available lately are available. Bam is probable. Caleb Martin's probable. The guys that were missing, Hero, Love, Richardson, all out for a while. And this is basically like all of the exact same ownership on the DraftKings side and sort of on the FanDuel side, just juiced more. Let's call it around 20. For Bam Adebayo, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, and Terry Rozier. A couple of those guys are well north of 30 on FanDuel. We're also seeing a little bit of love coming into Jaime Jaquez. This is the first spot that we could actually talk about guys we like, guys we don't really like. How do you see Miami going today?
Yeah, so good matchup here for the Heat. I think the top 3 guys, Rozier, Bam, and Jimmy, all look pretty good. I was taking a look at some numbers over the last 5 games. Bam's 1.07 point per minute, Rozier 1.01, Jimmy's about 1.0. Usage, all pretty similar. Jimmy, 26% usage rate over the last 5 games. Bam, 23%. Rozier, 22%. So, that's where the option is coming from here for Miami. Reasonable price points as well. Again, 8.4 for Butler, 8.2 for Bam, and 6.8K for Rozier. I think when you factor in salary, I think Rozier would probably be my preferred option because he's the cheapest of the 3, does have shooting guard eligibility, and his minutes have ticked up recently. 35 minutes back-to-back games. So I think Rozier probably my favorite of the top 3 guys, but you still got to have some interest in these other pieces as well. Duncan Robinson, 5.1K, continues to play 30 plus minutes. He's got shooting guard, small forward eligibility. And, if he knocks down his shots, we know he does have a ceiling. So right now he's getting about close to 20%. I think he's a reasonable mid-range play. Martin and Jaquez as well. Martin 4.5, Jaquez 4.9. Martin about double the ownership right now of Jaime Jaquez. I think that if you factor in the ownership, I think I'd rather get to Jaquez for about half the ownership over Martin. But both guys are, again, reasonably priced in a good spot. So a lot of the main Miami pieces are playable. I don't think I can get to Jovic. His minutes have been a little bit up and down. They did play 10 guys in the most recent game. You saw Thomas Bryant get dusted off as well. So don't know if that's going to happen again, but we've seen Jovic minutes all over the place. I don't know. I'm not super confident in him. I know he's not getting a lot of ownership, but yeah, I think that's basically it for Miami. So Rozier, my favorite play at the top, but then those secondary plays, Robinson, Jaquez, Martin, all solid point per hour plays too.
I'm in the 20 to 29% range on Rozier, Bam, Martin, and Robinson. So very little separation there. Just like a little bit more than the field for most of them, but we're talking like a percentage point or two. Dead neutral on Butler. I'm a little bit under on Jaquez, but as you pointed out, I don't know why I am, and I'm curious why I am, because I have Jaime Jaquez projected slightly better than Caleb Martin in this game, but I got 5% of Jaquez and 22% of Martin. And I would have assumed that would have just like, at first I was just like, the position must be a little bit different. That $400 must be very relevant in that range for me in some way, that it's causing that to not happen. But that might be a guy where I give a little bit of a negative boost to Martin and a little bit of a positive boost to Jaime Jaquez and like kind of handle that one manually for myself.
Right. Like I think they're pretty similar plays, but if one's gonna be double the ownership, I would just, rather get to the lower owned guy.
I just gave a 1%. Yeah, that was not nearly enough. Let's give 2 and 2. Okay, I like that a little bit more. That turns into, now I still didn't even get enough Jaime Jaquez. I'm gonna work on that one after the show, but I like you pointing that one out. That one slipped through the cracks for me. So I appreciate you getting me off Caleb Martin. That guy is a lock tonight now.
Yeah, he's gonna go crazy now.
Absolutely. I'm going to naturally pivot off of him to Jaime Jaquez, and Caleb Martin is going to play 47 minutes.
That's how it always happens, though. Literally always.
I did that once on a stream. It was Aaron Holiday and TJ McConnell. And we got news.
I remember those days.
I can't remember who was about. I think like we were expecting TJ McConnell to start, and we got Aaron Holiday or vice versa. But like whatever the salary worked out, you were able to make that swap. And it was $6.59. I'm live on Live Before Lock. And I hot swapped all of those. Like I flipped everybody and got it in. If I didn't do that, I would have shipped the contest for $100K.
Oh, that is brutal.
If I wouldn't have got it in, like if I wouldn't have hit the button correctly, if I would have just been delayed, whatever ended up happening in the game, the opposite was what I needed. So like if I could have just screwed up or not noticed or like looked up at the wrong time, because there were countless times when I first started doing my show where I'd be building my lineups at 6:58 and then never get them in. Or like Chad would be like, oh, register FanDuel too. And I'd do that and be like, I never even got there. never even put an upload in. It happened a lot.
That is real pain there. But I do remember that was a couple of years ago, always debating when the Pacers had someone out like McConnell versus Holiday. It was always a tough choice.
I get that. It's either coming up or I've missed it, but I have the screenshot in my phone and I get it in my time hop every year as a reminder that life sucks.
Yep.
Anybody else for Miami? I can't imagine we're going to Bryant, Mills, Jovic.
No,
that's it.
I don't think I can do any of those guys.
Well, we've reached our first problematic game of the evening, but at least it's a 7:00 start. Cade Cunningham is questionable today, and the trickle-down effect of that one is massive because if Cade is out, Marcus Sasser is probably the most popular play on the slate, considering he's already 20% owned and the highest owned guy on the Pistons. Maybe that's fortune-telling. It's already a little bit bumped for what could possibly happen. 20% ownership coming into Fontecchio, around 15 for Jaden Ivey, around 10 for Jalen Duren, just 6 for Cade Cunningham. Let's start with the Detroit side. What do you think is happening here?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty 50-50 if Cade plays or not. I was taking a look at rates with him off the court this year. Duren 1.23 fantasy point per minute player, Ivy 1.11. Obviously Sasser, I think Sasser would start and become probably the top value in the slate, him or THT. If Cade Cunningham does not play. I will say though, I think Sasser is going over owned if Cade plays.
Yes.
He closed over Cunningham last game, and I don't think that's going to happen. Did you see the quote? Cade came out and said, "Leave Sasser in the game."
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
which is interesting. But I'm with you there.
Yeah, so I think I think Sasser is. Well, I mean, we'll get this news. So I think if Cade's in, I think he's going over owned. If Cade's out, obviously the ownership's going to go way up, and he becomes a phenomenal value. But yeah, we'd have to consider these other pieces too. If Cade sits, Duran again gets a nice bump there. Fontecchio, I was so pissed about this. I late swapped, or I swapped last second onto him last game, and he went for like 0.4 fantasy points. It's 16 fantasy points in 38 minutes. Super frustrating because I came in fifth in the $100. So if I would have kept what I had, I probably would have won it. So that tilted me. But yeah, not necessarily the best matchup here against Miami, obviously, but reasonable price points for the Pistons. And I think if Cade sits too, we'd have to start considering guys like Stanley Umunde and Evan Fournier too. Like those guys would be in play 3.2 and 3K respectively.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Fournier to start if Cade is out. And they just go Jaden Ivey at the
like
1.
Ivy starting at the point and then just starting Fournier at the 2.
Mm-hmm. You can play a couple extra minutes for Sasser at that point, but we got to remember, like, taking Cade off the floor isn't just taking a point guard off the floor. He's not a point guard defensively. And that kind of changes the shape of the team a little bit in terms of defensive matchups. Like, Cade is bigger and not guarding ones as much. So it's possible that they could take Cade off the floor and just replace him with a similar-ish sized body and look at that defensively. Also, could just reward the vet in this scenario. I don't trust Detroit to be making great decisions. Just something to pay attention to. None of this shit matters. We're going to have this at 6:30 one way or the other, but don't be surprised to see Evan Fournier be a sneaky spot into a starting lineup, at which point the $3,000 small forward is going to be in basically everything you do. Either way, he would be one of those two guys, if Cade is out, is going to be a real problem.
Right. Like whoever gets the start there is going to become a phenomenal play. Fontecchio too, I wanted to mention with Thompson off the court. 2 games ago, he played 37 minutes. Last game, he played 38. But in the game he played 37 minutes, he dealt with some foul trouble. He played 21 first half minutes. So I'm expecting like big minutes for Fontecchio. I think the industry is a little bit lighter on his projection. Yeah. So like, I think you're going to get high 30s minutes from Fontecchio. So like, unfortunately, he is in play again, even though he let me down in a big way last time out.
It's definitely not Grimes season. I can tell you guys that much. Yeah, not in for this one.
Yes, he would be out.
What else do you want to do here? Like, I'm getting to Fontecchio around the field. I'm under on Sasser for now. I won't be if that changes. What do you want to do with Duran and Ivy? Or is it just sort of wait and see because let's assume Cade's in for right now. What do you like?
If Cade is in, then it's those guys are more secondary plays to me. 15% ownership to Ivy, 10% to Duran. Like they would still be playable for sure. Finally got Duran right last game in the huge what do you go for 60 fantasy points or whatever. But yeah, those guys would be more filler plays for me. I don't think I would get to anyone else. Like I don't think I'm not super interested in Stewart at 5'3". I mean, Wiseman's going to back up Duran and probably play whatever he doesn't play. So you can always take a shot on him in tournaments because he is a good point per minute player. If you get Duran foul trouble, which is definitely possible because he's been foul trouble a lot recently, he could have a good game of low ownership. But yeah, those two guys, Ivy, Duran, would be just like secondary plays for me if Cade plays.
Yeah, it's a hard one to dig into right now just because that is probably one of the biggest pieces of news that we will actually get that will change the slate. And based on the line, and I saw it got mentioned in chat a little bit, I think that Cade is not playing. But that's doesn't matter. Nothing more than a hypothetical. At 6:30, we're going to figure. Well, hopefully at 6:30. Detroit is notorious for not releasing their lineups on time, but maybe that was his predecessor, and they have been. They were pretty regularly putting them in late last year, but maybe that isn't just a team thing. Oh, I don't want to talk about this
Pistons.
game either.
Pistons and like one other team have been really annoying with like, who was it? Was it the Nets? I feel like were bad.
The Kings like 2 days ago were ridiculous when it was Keon Ellis starting. They didn't put that one out until like 10 minutes before the lineup was about to lock.
How about the Celtics the other day with Pritchard in the starting lineup and after lock like back to Hauser?
Cade will play. Cade in.
Right. Well.
It took 10 seconds for me to put something out into the ether for you guys, and I was immediately told that I was wrong. I'm telling you, man, I can talk this shit into existence one way or the other. I'm the ultimate jinx. So Caden, all right. Do you want to change any of your thoughts now for what you like here for Detroit? Does that cement anything for you?
Yeah, I think Sasser's going over owned. I don't think it really does much else. Again, Duran Ivy's still the same to me. Fontecchio's reasonable. Um, yeah, I don't think I can. I don't think I'm gonna get to Kate either. I know he's low owned, but I think there's just other guys in that price range I would much rather get to. So, yeah.
I think I'm going to quickly bet the Pistons if I can.
What's the spread on the game right now?
Pistons are getting 8 plus 110 or minus 110.
Okay.
I think that line is going to move a little bit. We shall see. Um, let's get to Orlando. Weird team to talk about today. And I'm still getting Cole Anthony, which is a little annoying. I tried to make that stop. They got everybody in that they normally have. Raptors are without RJ Barrett. He'll be out. Maybe who knows for a while, if I had to guess. Jakob Poeltl also out. Q tag on Gary Trent. We have around 15% ownership to Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Wagner, and John Isaac, and around 10 for Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs, and Cole Anthony. This is kind of like the last one. Lots of dudes getting a bunch of ownership here. I'm just going to open up the floor to you. What do you see from Orlando that you like?
Yeah, so the two value plays getting the most ownership right now, Isaac and Wagner. I think right now as it stands, again, there's not a ton of value on the slate. So I do think Jonathan Isaac is like a pretty safe play. Value-wise, good point per minute, should play, somewhere in the neighborhood of like high teens, low 20s minutes, 18, 16, 19, and 20 minutes over the last 4 games, 20 plus fantasy points in all those games. And it's nice he's got power forward eligibility. So I think Isaac's probably my favorite play to target on Orlando. And then, I mean, the minutes have been a little bit more secure for Wendell Carter Jr. of late. 31, 29, 25, 28, 27 minutes over the last 5 games. I think he's a totally reasonable center play. Again, a lot of guys in the mid-range look pretty similar. So he's getting a little over 10% ownership. Totally fine with that. Not as high on like the guards like Suggs, Anthony, Fultz. I just don't really know if I want to deal with that headache on this slate. The minutes are never really secure for those guys. And really the only 2 guys you can confidently say will close for the Magic every single night are Franz and Paolo. Franz and Paolo both sub 10% owned. Good matchup, but the price point's up on Paolo. Like he's 8.9K, so a little bit tough to go there. I think it might be a little bit easier to get to Franz at 7.2K. So I think he's a decent option at that price and ownership. And I don't think it's necessary to go like take a shot on like Ingles or Gary Harris or anyone like that. So favorite play, probably Isaac. Mo Wagner also getting some ownership. That's fine. Like he's a good point per minute player, but the minutes have not been great on him because they've ticked up on Carter Jr. And then you will see some Isaac at the 5 as well.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of all of these guys, but my biggest stand is Franz Wagner, small forward only, but it's a position that's generally hard to fill. 8% owned. I have 23%. I kind of love that for what this day is, especially against Toronto. This is a not very good basketball team right now.
Really good.
But like I'm neutral on Isaac. I'm a little bit over on Cole Anthony, which I legitimately hate and thought would go away, but didn't. Same thing. Neutral on Wendell Carter Jr. Neutral on Paolo Banchero. Neutral on Jalen Suggs. Like I'm just kind of joining the field for everybody except for Franz Wagner, which I can handle.
Yeah, like I think Franz is going a bit under owned for the price and ownership. So yeah, I think that's a good stand to be a little overweight to him right now.
And then we're not really waiting on anything for Orlando. So then we can shoot it over to Toronto where we are waiting on something. We need that Gary Trent news. No ownership is coming into Toronto right now. Not surprising. Orlando 4th in defensive rating on the season, 15th in pace. Quickly 7% owned. Gary Trent is actually 6% owned. Quickly is twice as likely to be optimal as he is owned right now in our boom bust tool. That's exactly how I have it. I have 15% ownership coming into Quickly. These guys are different on FanDuel, though. 33% ownership to Gary Trent. We don't know he's playing. 20% to Quickly. 15 to Bruce Brown and Agbaji. Another 10 to Olynyk. So FanDuel's a very different scenario. Do you like anything here from Toronto?
I think Quickly is someone that I'm much higher on in the field. You said you're getting 2x ownership on him right now.
Yeah.
I was looking over the last 5 games for Toronto. Quickly, 1.28 fantasy point per minute player. You're probably going to get high 30s minutes from him. Like right now, he's just doing everything for the team. Usage, he has, I think, a 40% assist percentage, a 41% assist percentage over the last 5 games. So yeah, I think Quickly is probably my preferred option. Like if Toronto keeps this game competitive, you're going to see most likely a pretty big game from him. I know it's not the best matchup, but again, he's just doing everything for this team. And then we could get some interesting mid-range plays here if Gary Trent Jr. doesn't play. You know, guys like Bruce Brown and Grady Dick were very popular last slate. They would be reasonable options if Gary Trent Jr. gets ruled out. Olynyk to a price point where like I'm fine getting them, but I'm not going to prioritize them. The ownership's not there. You know, 7K should play around 30 minutes. Jonte Porter is one guy I wanted to mention. 22 and 21 minutes over the last couple of games. You know, he can play a little bit alongside Olynyk as well. And maybe you give him a couple extra minutes too if Gary Trent Jr. is out. So he could be like a viable contrarian value play, but a little bit tough to get to him because he's only center eligible. So yeah, and then these like value plays like McDaniels, Nwora, they would be completely out of play if Gary Trent Jr. Plays. So right now, it's definitely my big stand is being much higher on Quickly than the field.
Same situation for me on Quickly. I have a little bit more of Gary Trent and then a couple shares of Kelly Olynyk, and that's it. There's really just not much here. If Trent ends up out, I will likely be transferring any ownership that I had of Gary Trent right to Grady Dick. And when I say that, I mean, hopefully we get that news before 7 o'clock. Otherwise, I will not be doing that at all. And if we get it at 6:59, I probably won't be doing that either. Decent. I don't know what to do there. Like, how do you want to handle Gary Trent? Like, let's say it's 6:45. Do you even want to have him? Is he worth getting to in this situation with any ambiguity?
No, like I don't think like that's the type of play I don't think it's even worth taking the risk on. Even if he's low owned, like I don't see like the massive ceiling on Gary Trent, especially at 5.7K. Whereas there's a couple other guys, I think this next game we'll talk about, where one guy becomes like a phenomenal play if someone gets rolled out. So Gary Trent Jr. is not really a type of player with no late swap. I think I would take a shot on with him questionable.
Okay. Anything else you want to touch on for Toronto?
No, ready to move on.
All righty. I do want to give a shout out for sure to BetMGM. They are the sponsor of this show. Great people at BetMGM. Had a fantastic deal going on. And unfortunately, and I told you guys this was coming, a deal doesn't exist anymore. Bet 5, get $150 has gone by the wayside. Wave bye-bye to it, guys. I don't mean to do that to you. We gave you the news that it was coming. They do have another offer, and I am desperately trying to hunt that down. I think I have it in front of myself right now. Now I do. North Carolina, actually, still has bet 5, get 150. Shout out to everybody that lives in the state of North Carolina. You guys are clearly the best people, if I had to guess. Up to $1,500 in bonus bets paid back if your first bet does not win. That is the information that I have right now. That is the best that I can do for you right now. Sign up at BetMGM using the links in the description of this video or the ones that pop up in chat. The real thing that you guys should be doing, though, sign up for Odds Shopper. If you're looking for something on the sports betting side, this is the tool for you. One, I've been using it since I got to start on Monday, and I've been chomping at the bit to be able to use it. But two, I would like you guys to go find Greg's Twitter, and I hope Greg will reference this or maybe drop that tweet into chat when he does the NBA Live Before Lock show. Greg posted the Odds Shopper results on his Twitter feed today for the NBA season in multiple ranges. For every spot where the bet has been around for, like a couple minutes, an hour, whatever, for the entire season. Highly profitable over the course of the season. If you bet everything that Odds Shopper ever recommends. Now, you don't have to do that. And obviously, you're not going to have the ability to do that kind of thing. The principle of the data is the big takeaway here. There have been 39,719 recommended bets by Odds Shopper. If you bet every single one of them for $100, and it doesn't matter what number I'm saying here, just a consistent unit size, you would have a 4.07% ROI. That might not sound like a huge amount of money, but that's across 39,000 bets. You're clearly not getting 39,000 bets down. I get it. But this right here, for every recommended bet, is recommending positive ROI in the aggregate. That should set off alarm bells that you want this tool. There are odds shopper links in the description of this video for you to sign up, but we are showing you the data right now. The product is profitable wholesale. Choose the bets wisely. That could go up even more. Everybody loves Odd Shopper. I know I do. I've got like 20 bets in for today, thanks to Odd Shopper. Trying to hunt down that 39,719. I'm going to try to get as many bets down as I possibly can. Speaking of getting bets down, I saw the line move to 7.5. Did it move any further? Nope, still at 7.5, but I'll take that free half point. Well, we go to the first real headache for today. The Los Angeles Clippers are 6-point underdogs in New Orleans. It's a 219 total. James Harden is questionable. The fact that Kawhi Leonard is not even on the injury report today is mind-blowing to me. To leave a game early and I mean leave the game early, not just I can't play anymore. I'm gonna split. I'm gonna get out of this entire arena. And then come back the next day. Well, not the next day, but come back for the next game. Be questionable. I assume you thought it the same way. Kawhi sits, Harden plays.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure Kawhi was out, and I was like 50-50 on Harden. So I was absolutely shocked. Like, I don't remember the last time I seen just like a player like walk out of the stadium at halftime. So I was like, oh, there's no way. There's no way. And then just good and not even on the injury report. Like I'm just like, what is going on? Especially with a guy like Kawhi Leonard, who's like always injured. I don't know. It's just mind blowing to me that he's not even on the injury report today.
So I'm going to start with a simple way to look at this one.
Okay.
If James Harden is in, no one's getting any real ownership anywhere. Like Paul George gets to 11 on FanDuel. It doesn't really matter for FanDuel because you can actually swap this. This is only irrelevant for a DraftKings discussion. There's no ownership coming into these guys. They're one of the lowest owned teams. Right now, they have 20% aggregate ownership. That is the second lowest owned team of the slate. So we don't really have to care if Harden is in. The question I ask you is, what do we do heading into lock, knowing if we do not have this information? How do you want to play it?
Yeah, this is going to be a really, really hard one because, as you said, if Harden plays, there's nothing that stands out for the Clippers. But obviously, if he does not play, I think Bones Hyland becomes like the best value on the board, assuming he starts, and I think he would. So you're going to have to make a tough call for sure if we don't get this news before lock. I think Harden basically is 50-50. But right now, if we don't get it, I'm leaning towards, taking the shot in Bones Hyland just because, as we talked about Gary Trent Jr., I was like, it's not really worth it. I don't see a massive ceiling with Gary Trent Jr. taking that risk. Whereas with a guy like Bones Hyland, obviously, if we don't get the news before lock, I don't think the ownership's going to be there. And if you get Harden ruled out, like Bones could just become an absolute smash play and would be way under-owned. So I'm leaning towards taking the shot on it, but it's definitely risky because if Harden plays, like Bones Hyland is not a play. Like he's going to move back to the bench and play like 10 to 15 minutes. He would kill me. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one for sure.
I can't say what I'm going to like. My assumption is that at 6:45, if we have not received the James Harden news yet, I am going to project Bones Hyland in a way that will allow me to manipulate lineups enough to get him in some percentage. And I'll do some calculations based on like what I think the odds are of Harden playing, what I really think the Bones Hyland ownership will be. I'm expecting to play around 20% Bones Hyland because at 4,300, if Harden ends up out, you're projecting Hyland for like, let's be pessimistic and say 25 fantasy points. That's still one of the best value options that exist on this slate, like right away. That's with the most pessimistic option in a very relatively low minutes projection. Like Bones Hyland played 31.5 yesterday. You can be very light on that number and light on his per minute rates and still make him look good. So I would like to get to him because I think that's the type of play that can benefit me. And I don't care about the opposite side of it. Like my only goal is to win the contest. It's not as if I'm going to lose out on Harden because of this. I don't think that there's anything good for the Clippers. I'd rather just give myself the chance to have some bones. And if I don't have bones, like I still had to figure something out there anyway. So I like the idea of getting to a bit.
what are you going to do if we get Harden ruled out before lock? Like, what do you think you're going to do with 8.5K Kawhi and 8K Paul George?
So I have 9% Kawhi right now.
Yeah.
If we have it before lock, then I assume that I'm getting close to double for Kawhi. He gets a little bit of a bump, just for no Harden around. A similar story for Paul George, although Paul George did not get the ownership last night at all in that same situation. They're going to look a little bit better for sure. Bones is obviously like the overwhelming priority. And then there's probably not much else.
I think Zubac is a fine play. We've talked about a lot of centers like Wendell Carter Jr. and Nick Richards in that range. Like he's another like reasonable play you can get to. Did play 32 minutes in the most recent game. I think if Harden's out, maybe feel a little bit better about his minutes. But yeah, like I don't think I can get to like Norm Powell or Mann or anyone like that. Assuming Harden is in. So yeah, hopefully we get this news before lock. If not, like I said, you're gonna have to make a really, really hard, tough call.
It's fun to think about.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have anything else to add for the Clippers. That's the action point.
Yeah, I think that's it too for me.
On the Pelican side, the whole team is between 5 and 10% owned. Ingram, McCollum, Joval, Alvarado, Larry Nance, Najee Marshall. I'm going to include Trey Murphy just for the sake of him being a real player. And then Zion Williamson is sitting at 16%. I'm getting to Alvarado the most here, which I absolutely hate. I get why it's happening. I'd actually like Alvarado a little bit more if Harden were in, but he's going to be a pest to Bones or Harden either way. Do you like anything specific for the Pelicans?
I think Zion's probably my preferred option. Again, the minutes have not really been there for JV. They've ticked down. You've seen some, Zion at the 5, which obviously boosts his floor a bit. And the assist numbers have been up for Zion as well. Like I was looking at the last 5 games, he's leading the team in potential assists, 10.8 potential assists per game. Have you seen the assist numbers on CJ recently? Like I was looking last 5 games, only 4 potential assists a game. Like he's been doing like no passing. I just found
I bet the over today.
Okay. Well, I mean, what's his line 3 or 3.5? What is it?
It had some, if I remember correctly, it had some very weird juice. Let's see if I can find it quickly.
Okay. But yeah, I think Zion's my preferred option here. Ingram getting about 10%, just fine option, sub 8K, shooting guard, small forward eligible. You mentioned Alvarado. Like, again, there's not a lot of great value right now. Maybe we do get news before lock and some of this other stuff like Bones becomes a great play or, maybe some of these Hawks become good options. But the minutes have ticked up on Alvarado recently, like 25, 24, 21, 17, 19 minutes over the last 5 games. And he is close to min price. Not a bad point per minute player. So that's a reasonable value. I always mention Larry Nance. There's been a lot of times recently. It feels like every other game he's starting the second half over JV. And he's sub 4K. So if you do get that game where you get Nance playing mid 20s minutes, like he could be a really solid value play, and he's sub 10% owned. So that's a fine value, I think. JV himself, I mean, the price point has come down to a point where I actually think he's playable, even though the minutes have been really not looking good. Like if he just plays really well and you get the game where JV plays like 25 minutes, like he could absolutely blow that salary out of the water. So he's now to a point where I think he is playable, and ownership is not there on him either.
Over 3.5 assists plus 130.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think those like assist numbers have to go up for him because on the season, yeah, he's averaging over 4 assists a game.
Like the ball is definitely in Zion's hands more right now. No doubt about it. But that also just feels low.
It does. No, I looked at that, and then because that's why I looked at the potential assists, and then I looked at the potential assists. I'm like, what has been going on recently? So yeah, I don't expect CJ to be that bad with the assist numbers. But yeah, I don't think I get to guys like Murphy or Herb Jones. Those are always guys that I look to when like one of the big 3 are out. So can't go there. But yeah, I think like those value plays, Nance, Alvarado, playable, Zion, my favorite option at the top, Ingram, totally reasonable option. And then if you want to take a shot in JV and hope you get the game where he plays like 25 minutes, that's a totally reasonable stand to take on this slate.
CJ since February 1st has been a negative EPM player. His entire trend line is below the average line of 0. So one, it's probably not great for that contract they gave him. And two, that coincides with the fact that he hasn't been as active in the passing game, I guess. And now we got to talk about Malakar in chat. Malakar says, this is fantastic. Oh, he took it out of there. It was, I'm repeating this. It was,
Okay.
uh-oh, I took an edible a while ago and I forgot and just ate another one. And this man says, I'm good. Just 100 milligrams.
That would
What,
probably
man?
kill me.
Wait, what?
What? Just. It's never just 100 milligrams.
I'll pass
Maybe
away.
just 100 milligrams to you. That is not just 100 milligrams to most. Yeah, two of them. Is it 50 and 50 or 100 and 100? Either one of those would have me in my closet cowering.
Yeah, like I literally think I would die if I took that much.
Dang.
50 each. 50 each. Dude, hold on to your chair, man. You're going to think you're floating away. 100 is lightweight. You guys are out of your minds. Out of your minds.
Yeah, there's
All you people that are like, that's light. That's light. All you're doing is telling me you're drug addicts. That's it. That's all you're doing. Normal
the
people
chat is
do not have
wild
that
right
same.
now.
Normal people don't have the same thought process here. Yeah,
Oh
Phil
my-
Sensing,
yeah.
perfect. 100 melts me for over a day. That is the consensus answer to this.
Well, good luck, man. Hopefully, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
That is wow. Wow. The news god, 1,000 milligrams is light work. Drug addicts, all of you. All of you. Denver Nuggets. I'm excited to talk about this one. Nuggets are 10.5-point favorites in San Antonio, 223 total. Full strength Nuggets team here. 15% ownership to Jokic, about 15 to Michael Porter Jr., 25 to Jamal Murray, about 15 to Aaron Gordon, about 10 to the criminally never owned KCP. I like Murray and I like Jokic the most here, but I'm really happy to get to anything from Denver. Massive pace up spot, bad San Antonio defense. This looks pretty good for Denver.
Yeah, great spot. I mean, this is going to be. I'm going to try to watch this game. Is this game on national TV? Do you know Denver, San Antonio?
It'll be on playback, I hope.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Maybe
no,
I'll
I
hop
don't.
on.
I'll look it up.
Okay. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to watch this game a bit because I think trying to like watch. Have we gotten Jokic versus Wembanyama this year? Maybe we have.
We
Probably
did.
have,
Wemby went nuts.
Yeah.
I think he had 10
Okay.
stocks. ESPN2 is is an asterisk here, but no, this is on League Pass.
Okay. But yeah, so Denver, like great spot here against the Spurs. You gotta love targeting San Antonio. Jokic sub 12K. I think looks good. He's getting, as you mentioned, about 15% ownership. Jamal Murray getting the most ownership right now, 8.1K. I think he's a pretty good point per hour play as well. Like Denver's running a tight rotation. You're getting like big minutes for these main guys. Like I think you get like high 30s minutes for both Jokic and Jamal Murray. So I like into either of those guys. Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon, usually when this team's healthy, they're more to kind of secondary plays. And that's how I feel still. Like 6.4K for MPJ, 5.9K for Gordon. Both should play 30 plus minutes. MPJ's been third on the team in usage. He's had some good games recently. 30 plus fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 games. KCP, as you mentioned, is always like, I feel like he like never gets ownership. His role never really changes. He's just out there 3-and-D playing his low 30s minutes. Again, with the way that value looks right now, there's not a ton of amazing value. So if you wanted to take a shot at him at about 5%, I think it's a fine GPP play. And then one guy off the bench I'll mention, Peyton Watson, 3.7K. The minutes have been a little bit up and down on him, but he is a good point per minute player, good defender. If you get the game where he plays 20 plus minutes, he could have a really solid game. He's played 20 plus in 3 of the last 5 games. So I think he's another, viable contrarian value play.
I don't really have much to add on Denver. Like any one of these main guys I'm cool with. We've got 15 to 20% optimal rates on Jokic, Murray, Porter, Gordon. Like I like those guys. I like the Peyton Watson shout out. We've talked about a lot of like sub 4K guys that are getting some love. Doesn't seem to be the case right now. Before we get to San Antonio, I want to hit one thing. Rich Boy G said Suggs or Herb Jones on FanDuel if the slate started now. I missed that super chat earlier. I want to hit it quickly. So I have Suggs projected for 25.2 on FanDuel, and I have Herb Jones projected for 24. So for me, it's Suggs. But head on over to stokastic.com. We have a player compare tool, totally free. You'll find it in the tools drop down. You could pick both of those guys and compare them and see all of the data for each one of them if you want to try to make those decisions. Costs you nothing. And then Phil sent us the super chat and said, FanDuel triple dub bonus contest. Jokic the only option. I mean, I think Wemby is always live for one. That's for sure. In terms of this slate, though,
DeJounte Murray, maybe?
Yeah, I don't hate with the amount of people that are out, especially if Jalen Johnson is out.
Jalen Johnson and like Bogdanovic are out, maybe. Yeah.
There's not really another option to me that I think is real.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like Butler just doesn't have enough of the secondary stats. Same for like somebody like KD.
I was going to say the Suns, like maybe if one of the big three are out, but since they're fully healthy, like it's pretty unlikely one of those guys goes for a triple double.
Banchero is probably like relatively high on the list of people that can do it, but not like likely by like not as likely as Jokic, that's for sure. All right, I want to go to San Antonio. This is the big one. $10,500 center only. Victor Wembanyama is 2% owned in our ownership, at least as of the last run I got. I have 19, and I would not mind getting more. It's not that I think he looks exceptional in this spot or anything like that, but he's a 1.7, 1.8, something like that fantasy point per minute guy playing 31 minutes. This is a contest with 100,000 entries. This feels like an amazing spot to get different.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I think Wembanyama is definitely my favorite play here on the Spurs. Again, just getting a little over 2% ownership. Over the last 5 games, Wembanyama is a 1.76 fantasy point per minute player. I think you're going to get, 30 to 32 minutes, somewhere in that range, assuming no foul trouble. So I'm totally with you on Wembanyama. I like him as a contrarian spend up. I'm surprised he's not getting more love. So I think he had a huge game against Jokic, as you mentioned last time out. So I'm much higher on him than the field is. I don't think there's a ton else that stands out though for San Antonio. No one else getting more than 6% ownership. Devin Vassell, the highest owned guy. I mean, the minutes and on Champagny have ticked up of late. 34, 28, 34 minutes. So another reasonable contrarian value play, but still don't fully trust it because it pops the coach. So I think mainly for me, it's just Wembanyama. I don't really think I can get to any of these secondary guys like Vassell, Sohan, Jones, Keldon Johnson. Those are usually guys I get to if, Wembanyama's out, then I start looking to those guys.
I have 9% of Vassell, but I mean, that's not like a real amount or anything like that. I'm not sweating that in any way, but he's the only other guy that I would like to get to. You know what you guys should get to today? The NBA Sims Max package using the promo code Wemby. You can get 50% off your first payment for a Sims weekly package. It's normally $60 a week. If you use the promo code Wemby, it is $30 for your first week. If you wanted to get in and see what we have to offer, this is the promo code for you, folks. I promise you this. $30, a week's worth of projections, ownership, the Sims tool, the contest generator, the post-contest evaluation. I mean, this gets you in to our Discord. Every single piece of data, everything that exists on our NBA side is included in this package if you sign up and use that promo code Wemby. I love them in DFS today as a way to be different in the large field GPP, and you should love them as a way to get a discount on your NBA Sims Max package for your first week. I'll take that. And now we get to the ass end of the DraftKings slate, not on the FanDuel slate. And the worst part of today, the Atlanta Hawks are 3-point favorites in Utah, 224 total. Sadiq Bey is out for the season. Onyeka Okongwu is out. Trae Young is out. Jalen Johnson questionable. Jalen Johnson has missed the past 3.5 games with a sprained ankle. Bogdan Bogdanovic is questionable for an illness. This is disaster time for Atlanta. 33% ownership to DeJounte Murray, 25 to the questionable Bogdan Bogdanovic on a day where you can't late swap, 15 to Bruno Fernando, 15 to Clint Capella, 10 to Jalen Johnson. What are you doing here?
This one's tough because, well, number one, I don't think that if we don't get news before lock, I don't think that Bogdanovich ownership is going to hold because right now he's hitting about 25%. Now, if I had to guess, I would say he does play because it's just an illness, and he was questionable with an illness before that game a couple days ago, and he ended up playing. So if I had to lean, I would say he plays, where Jalen Johnson, I think, is more 50-50, but it's going to be interesting to see how the field plays if we don't get that news before lock. DeJounte Murray, I think, is the easiest guy to get to. I mean, gets a nice bump in assist percentage bump, usage bump, obviously with Trae Young off the court. He played 43 minutes in the most recent game. Like, he's just doing everything for the team. So he's getting ownership about 30%, but I totally agree with it. He is probably my favorite spend up on the board right now. I was just looking at the rotation, like last game for the Hawks. It was so gross. Like seeing guys like Vit Krejci, Wes Matthews, Dylan Windler, Garrison Matthews, Trent Forrest all play rotation minutes. This team is shorthanded and could be very shorthanded if Jalen Johnson and Bogdanovich are out. DeAndre Hunter right now is only getting about 4% ownership. I think he's a really interesting play because I think he's fine. He's still a viable option, I think, if Bogdanovich and Jalen Johnson both play. But if we get one or both of those guys out, then he becomes like a really good option, and the ownership is not there. So he's one where I think it's like pretty safe to target him either way, and you get the upside if one or both those guys are out. The center position right now is being split with Capella and Bruno Fernando. You're getting some ownership to Capella, about a little over 10%. Fernando, a little closer to the 20% mark. Both good point per minute. Fernando's cheaper, so I think he's a little bit easier to get to than it is Capella. But yeah, this one I think is the key to the slate, getting this news right with Johnson and Bogdanovich, or guessing right, I guess, if we don't get it. What are you going to do with Atlanta if we don't get the Johnson and Bogdanovich news before lock?
So here's the interesting thing for me. I have 7% of Bogdanovich, 4 of Bruno Fernando, 8 of Capella, and 13 of DeJounte Murray. So I am like massively under on these guys. And I have to actually sit down after we finish up this show and start thinking about what I want to do. Because this is the one that I haven't really given much thought. It's horrific. It really is. Like, obviously, DeJounte Murray looks good, but there's a limited amount of bump you can give him if you take Jalen Johnson and Bogdanovich both off the floor with him being 9,500. Like, there's not much left in his game that he can squeeze out that he hasn't already squeezed out with Trae Young not around. So I'm curious. Like, I think I'm pretty much at critical mass for Murray's projection. Maybe it can go up a little bit more, an extra point or two of usage, but I have a sneaky suspicion I'm going to be light there. I can handle not getting to Garrison Matthews, Trent Forrest, Wesley Matthews, because these guys are value options. Like, I have to plan ahead for that. They're poor per minute guys. Even if I get them right, I might not be getting them right.
Yeah.
I like the DeAndre Hunter call. A guy that can go out there and be a great play today, regardless of how that news drops. You're not dead, no matter how any bit of that breaks. The scariest guy to me is Bruno Fernando, just because I don't know if that takes a bite out of center minutes. You certainly don't need 48 minutes of center play from Fernando and Capella against the Jazz right now. And I'm sure somebody wants to give John Collins the business after a lengthy stay in Atlanta. I have a sneaky suspicion that I'm going to be largely light on this entire team.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good shout out too. If Jalen Johnson plays, I don't know if you get the full 48. Like, you've been getting the full 48 minutes for Capella and Fernando since Johnson has been out. But if Johnson's in, like, we have seen him play at the 5. And again, with Utah, like, do they really need like a center out there at all times when Collins is out there? I don't think so. So that is a good call. That does worry me a little bit with the two centers, especially Fernando, because I think I don't think Capella would lose a ton of minutes, but I think Fernando could get his minutes slashed if Jalen Johnson does play.
Yeah, that could be a very interesting dynamic. I'm really curious to see where I end up on Murray, because he's obviously just like Hunter in that there's no downside risk to him and probably only upside. I want to shout out Trouble for sending in this super chat. Climbed up to 5th in the $4 last night. Thanks for all the breakdowns and advice. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate you, man. Congrats. It's a nice little pickup to the old bankroll.
Yeah, that's a great W.
The Utah side is also a problem. No Jordan Clarkson, right groin strain. Chris Dunn is out for rest. Lauri Markkanen is out, and we might get Taylor Hendricks back, which does complicate matters a little bit for Utah. 55% ownership coming into Talen Horton-Tucker, 35 to Colin Sexton, 30 to Keontae George, and 15 to John Collins. I'm over the field on all four of them, and some of them in a big, big way. What are you doing with Utah?
Yeah, I really like this team. Definitely one of my favorite teams to target. Again, THT right now getting the most ownership, but I think it makes sense. There's not a lot of great value right now. He's sub 4K. He's not a good real life player, but he's pretty good point per minute. And that's all we care about. So he's definitely getting a minutes bump here without Clarkson and without Chris Dunn. So I think he stands out as one of the best values right now on the board, but also very high in those other guards. Sexton, my boy Keontae George, both getting around 30% ownership. You're seeing huge minutes for Keontae George right now. Probably going to get a high 30s minutes. I'm expecting like mid 30s minutes for Colin Sexton. Great matchup. I was taking a look at the rates with Lauri Markkanen and Clarkson off the court this year. Sexton, 1.15 fancy point per minute player. Keontae George, 1.08. Talen Horton-Tucker, 1.08. So those I think are the three main guys I'm looking to, but I think John Collins is reasonable, just over 10% ownership. Little revenge game if you guys are into that. Kessler, the price point's up on him. The minutes have been a little bit frustrating. I mean, he's playable, I guess, but I'm not super confident in that one. I do think Taylor Hendricks is a little bit interesting. I expect him to play. He was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, so I do expect him to play. And we probably are going to get, mid to high 20s minutes from him if he's in. So he would be a reasonable option there in the mid range. But yeah, I think mainly it's THT and then the two guards, Sexton and Keontae George.
Yeah, I got 60% of THT, 50 of Keontae George, which I love. 45 of Sexton, which I love, and then 27 of Collins, which I hate, but I will tolerate because the matchup is exceptional. This would have been an amazing late swap situation. There would have been incredible value to everybody that was willing to do it. It would have been this Atlanta-Utah game would have been the best way to have profitable lineups on today's slate if there were late swap, and we don't have it. Would have been one of the perks of using the late swap tools. But for now, we've got 58 minutes until we just set it and forget it like it's a Ron Popeil toaster or something. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I think, like I said, as we talked about, if we don't get the news before lock, you got to make some tough calls with Bones Highland and the Clippers, and then with what you're going to do with Atlanta. So very interesting slate. I'm curious to see how the field plays it too. It's going to be very interesting to see what the ownership is when lock comes around.
NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Everybody hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit the notification bell so you know when we go live on playback in an hour. Live Before Lock on this stream is up next.
We're back. Another edition of the Stokastic Hall of Fame with a Millie Maker win this week. And all you got to do to get involved, get up here, inducted into the Hall of Fame yourself, and get a free month of any Stokastic package of your choosing up to $200 value is download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, doesn't matter how much you win or how much it was to enter, you are locked into the Hall of Fame, locked into a $200 package over at stokastic.com. And let's kick it off with a big one. It's our own Steve Buzzard. The Sims were on fire this week. Thankfully, Purdy decided not to run back any further on that final play. This is fitting, given that Steve Buzzard was integral in creating the Sims tool that we have and he used to win a millie. Also, one of the craziest ways to win a millie on a negative 3-yard kneel down for Brock Purdy at the end of that game. Steve winning by 0.1 in the millie. And next up, another big one. We've got JK. Thanks for the content. If only Clay would have hit one more 3 before fouling out, we could have had all the glory. Still, $20,000 win, second place for Skull Crusher. Ain't bad. Brett Shoup, another Hall of Fame jacket. Shout out to all the guys on the Strategy Show, Deeper Dive, and Live Before Locks. Sim City, baby. $5,000, second place for Brett. And Germ, just a simple at Stokastic HOF, $20,000 in the fadeaway. Followed by Adam, been a huge fan of Stokastic, recently got the Sims package, took down the 60K 4-point play last night with the tool. Stokastic, best in the business. Thanks, man. Congratulations. And Namdi, back on fire. Second place in the 7.5K mini max. Shout out to Namdi. We've seen him a few times recently. John Good, been a Stokastic member for a long time, finally decided to try the Sims tool, and this happened on the first night using it. Best in the biz, fellas. Fantastic addition to the community. Second place with the avatar. Lil Soupy, first place.
Hot route. Hot route. What does that mean? It means go over there. I have no air in my lungs. Scream at you.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. We're sponsored by BetMGM. If you guys haven't done it over the course of the deep dive, do Eric and myself a favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you don't want to do it for us, do it for Mike, who's producing the show today. Mike, big thank you to Mike, because Jordan had to call out. He had a family emergency today and wasn't sure how we were going to have the shows produced. There was different things that I had considered. Maybe we were just going to exclusively do the show over on playback so we could still do the post-lock show there, because it was going to be very difficult for us to find a way to self-produce multiple shows on multiple different platforms. But luckily, Mike came through. He was commuting today, but still he showed up after a long drive, like 15 minutes before the deep dive started, and filled in. So Mike, really appreciate you, and wanted to make sure, I texted you that as well, but wanted to make sure that we did it on the air too, so people could know how much it is that I appreciated you filling in for today. You saved the day. You're a hero for one particular day, Mike. An idiot again tomorrow, but today a hero for today, Mike. So I appreciate that very much. Also, for these super chats, were these ones answered, Mike, in the last show, or are they still outstanding ones? Okay.
I'm going to default to no.
You never know. You never know. I've been surprised on some of these recent ones. I've been surprised. And then we're going to get into how we're going to be talking about this.
My God.
With no late swap and
I
a bunch
hate
of
it so
players being
much.
questionable. It is, it's an interesting one to figure out. Here's from a strategy standpoint, Eric, do you like or dislike that the slate doesn't have a late swap?
I dislike it so much today. I mean, I don't know what it is too, because like the last time there was the non-late swap situation, we had the Malik Monk thing that came to fruition, which was about as good of a run good situation as I could possibly get. I don't know what it is about Atlanta, Utah. I don't know what it is about freaking James Harden, but like, I don't feel good about anything. I'm playing pretty light today, just firing, whatever in the $4 and moving on with my life. It's just a wonky little slate. So again, you got to embrace some volatility. You got to probably make some Bones Highland adjustments. You've got to, coming off of yesterday too. The thing is, I don't think there are a lot of people out there that aren't going to be getting to Bones Highland. That's kind of the impression that I get, that if we don't have that news before lock, that people will get there one way or another. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe there is something to mine out. I think though that the Utah-Atlanta game is just a disaster that I don't want to deal with all that much.
So I know what people are going to say. Hey, if you want to play a late swap slate, go play on FanDuel. Here's the problem: the game I want for late swap is that last game on the slate, the Jazz Hawks game.
Yep.
On DraftKings. There's no late swap on FanDuel. That game isn't included on the slate. So like it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. I want to be able to late swap for that game, but not be able to do it. Anyway, did you find out if they answered those questions or not, Mike?
He said no. Yes, they did. They did.
Okay, all perfect. Shout out to Chris Williams, who gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Shout out to Malukar, gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. We appreciate you guys. But yeah, I want to know, what is your mindset going into the start of the slate here? Because I mean, we got 51 minutes here, and to be honest, I have to talk through it with you. I have no clue what the hell I'm going to be doing. But is there any clear strategy you have looking at these games? Because it seems very unlikely to me that we're going to get the Hawks news before the slate starts.
No, we're definitely not. But I mean, I I think for me, it's kind of almost the inverse of the Fox spot where I thought there was a pretty good chance he was going to sit, and then you were going to have Anthony Edwards there. I think we end up getting Bogdanovich and Jalen Johnson in, which I think is going to temper how much DeJounte Murray I'm going to get to. He's going to be crazy popular no matter what. And I think he's a good play probably no matter what. If you get both of them out, I'm probably going to be very, very upset with the world, but I don't think we're going to see a ton of fluctuation with his ownership specifically. I'm looking at the Utah side of things and trying to decide what to do with Talen Horton-Tucker because obviously he's a good fantasy point per minute player. He is cheap. He is popping in the Sims, but we had 9 minutes against Denver in a blowout, 17 last time out against Boston. If he got 17 minutes, I would feel so good being way underweight. And obviously the inverse where, he goes out and sets it on fire and plays 22, you're in a lot of trouble. So I'm looking at some interesting value spots early in the slate that I think are going a little bit overlooked. And I'm hoping people overinvest and that we kind of get the injury news on the Atlanta side to break the other way. And I'm hoping also with the Bones Highland thing, I think I'm going to have to pre-cut, I'm playing 25 lineups. I'm going to probably make 5 of them, maybe with Bones Highland just built in, because they're dead lineups if you don't end up having James Harden sit. So I think for me, looking at those late injury situations that we won't have the keys to, I think I'm hoping that they're going to break the opposite way that I normally do, where it's hey, I want to have as much late swap versatility as possible without late swap period and without knowing that news. I think I'm just going to hope that everybody plays. How about you?
It's so hard. So the thing that I'm really struggling with is, the way our ownership works, it's based on projections. So we have Bones Highland not projected for any ownership because why would he have ownership? He projects terribly right now. If Harden plays, Highland is completely unplayable because I know he was great yesterday. He was my nuke of the night. We're really high on him. But if you look at Bones Highland for the season, you never consider playing Bones Highland and James Harden's in. None of us have played Bones Highland this season. So he's dead if Harden ends up playing. And it's really hard to apply some sort of math-based logic to this. Are people going to get to Bones Highland even if Harden plays and we just don't have the news heading into lock? And I'm just not sure because I don't have a lot of information to go back on. We've played one slate this year without late swap. It was a couple of Fridays ago, and nothing crazy happened with injury news. Before then, it's been years since we played DFS without late swap. So the thing that's trickiest for me is I don't know what the field is going to do with Bones Highland. If Bones Highland was actually going to be 0% owned, I want to play Bones Highland, but I don't think that's what the field is going to do. I think the field is going to play Bones Highland. And in that case, I think I'm probably better off building lineups assuming Harden's in.
Yep, that's the exact way I'm looking at it. And by the way, we did have the non-late swap and we had Fox ruled out. So, it was a gigantic shift for me where, I built my lineups around him being out. But I'm with you. I think today, I find it hard to believe that people saw the nuke that Bones Highland put up yesterday. The fact that his price went up a grand total of $200, and they're not going to go try to at least make that doable. Now, the problem is that I'm sure there's going to be people who play all in for it, and there's going to be people who do what I do, and it's they straddle the middle. It's I think maybe I'm better off just completely trimming it and going towards a little bit. I don't think you want to be playing James Harden. I think this kind of dilutes anything you want to get from the Clippers side. And I think it makes it a little bit more appealing to just write that team off as a whole. But do you have any pull about Atlanta?
So what I think is going to happen with Atlanta is I know we have Jalen Johnson, Bogdanovich projected for ownership. I don't think the field plays these guys at all.
I don't think so either. And those are the two guys I think I want to play a little bit of.
What I want to do is just load up on DeJounte Murray because Murray already looks good as is. Okay. Right. So Murray's a good option now. Good matchup against the Jazz. And actually, when I run my lineups through the Sims tool right now, I'm getting to 59% of DeJounte Murray. And now what I feel like I could do is I'm good with the amount of exposure I have to DeJounte Murray. What I think really makes sense here is I don't really know what to make of Jalen Johnson and Bogdanovich. I'm getting to Bogdanovich in, 22% of lineups right now. But I think what I prefer to do is just take Bogdanovich out of everything and then instead be hey, more DeAndre Hunter, more DeJounte Murray, more Clint Capella, guys who already look decent and would look even better if these players are ruled out. And I'm not giving myself the same downside if guys like Bogdanovich and Jalen Johnson sit and I have them in lineups.
Yeah, I guess my worry is that I think Murray is going to be higher owned than 33%. That's just the impression that I get. I obviously think he projects out phenomenally well. I mean, it's north of 38 minutes. It's a guy projected north of 50. He gets a Utah matchup and has the possibility of really having things break his way with Bogdanovich and Johnson both sitting here in this spot because they're projected in as it is right now. You remove them, his 1.32 fantasy point per minute rate, looking more like 1.4. He's had the ball in his hands pretty much nonstop with Atlanta. I saw something on Twitter and I can't remember who to contribute it to. So my apologies. There's somebody that I saw that tweeted out something really cool where it was like, over the last 3 games, DeJounte Murray's had the ball in his hands or had possession of the ball for over 10 minutes in all 3 of them. Luka Doncic leads the NBA and it's like 8.5 minutes per game. So like the amount of like just possessions that go through Murray is boundless right now. I mean, it's incredible to watch DeJounte Murray without Trae Young right now, but God, it's just such a tough slate for me. Again, I'm playing lighter as a result. I have a really tough time trying to figure out what I want to do.
Yeah, and let's talk through some of the tools on the site and the best ways to manipulate them for the news. So for me, when I'm running everything through the contest generator, we got the $4 150 max. This is something I'm very, very confident in. You want to put this closer to the low stakes setting in the contest start type.
Yes.
You want to be between marquee and low stakes, and the field just not nearly as sharp on these $4 contests that have like close to 100,000 people in them. The other thing that I want to do is I want to go in and I want to lower the projected ownership on Jalen Johnson, James Harden, and Bogdanovich, because the field is just not going to get up to the projected ownership, but then being questionable and being super risky plays heading into lock. Now, if we happen to get this news in the next 44 minutes, it changes things. I just don't think we're going to get the news. So I'm rerunning my pool right now. And what I'm doing is, well, I already have the setting between marquee and low stakes, but I do want to lower the ownership on Jalen Johnson, James Harden, Bogdanovich. Is there anybody else you think that we should maybe have to change projected ownership for in the pool based on this being a non-late swap slate?
Not really, because some of the other injury news is just earlier. So I think we have it. Like, I'd be surprised if we didn't have Gary Trent news before lock.
He's already been ruled in, I think.
Oh, he's been ruled in. I didn't even see that come in. Yeah. So I just have all my markers on the sheet. Yeah, I mean, it'll be later. I don't think we're going to end up getting maybe we do. Maybe we get the James Harden news. That would be great. But otherwise, I don't think there's any like other sacrifices or any other changes I'm willing to make. Obviously, you always have to pay attention to Toronto's starting 5 because, you know, they'll once in a blue moon do something weird. But I'm assuming it's going to be the standard that we've had here for the last couple. I don't think there's anything else that I really want to go out of my way to do. Did you have something in mind? Because it kind of seemed like a leading question.
No, just what I'd said before. I know what I'm doing and recreating my contest pool in the contest generator, just using some of the settings I'd mentioned before, which I think is very relevant to a lot of people who are watching that are Sim subscribers or people who are in Discord. So those are some of the levers that I'm pulling that I think are going to make my pool a little bit more accurate than what most of the field is going to be doing if they're using Sims tools. Just that's the way I think these non-late swap slates are going to work, is you're going to have people who just don't want to play guys who have injuries. But I think something else that we should consider, because I'm not sure that or maybe you said it and I just kind of missed it, but somebody like Bogdanovich, are you looking to play him if he's still questionable heading into lock?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Against Utah? I mean, you don't have to. I don't think he's like a key component of the slate, but I mean, I'll probably get a couple of shares for sure of Bogdanovich. Jalen Johnson less so, because I don't know. I mean, the minutes, you got to assume that he's going to come into like 34 right away or something, but there's definitely a minutes downside. I don't think 38 or 40 is in play for him. So I think the left tail outweighs the right tail, if that makes sense.
No, makes sense to me here. Anything else that, at least as far as the injury news goes, that you're considering? Does Taylor Hendricks matter to you at all? In anything else along those lines?
I mean, if I knew Taylor Hendricks was in, I'd want to play a little bit. But 5,200, I think that's where it gets a little bit wonky. It's like, what's the opportunity cost of getting to him? Like for Bogdanovich, I know 6,700 looks like a lot, but he's pulling 21.5% ownership. I think if he's questionable coming into lock, safe to assume we don't think he's going to be 21.5% owned.
So I had You asked Bogdanovich. I have
Bogdanovich specifically.
Bogdanovich. So after making some alterations to the contest generator, I came away with 7% of projected ownership for Bogdanovich.
Yeah, well, with projected ownership, gotcha. Yeah, so I've got 15%. I'm just playing him in 3 whatever and moving on with my life. So I think that'll probably be the way that I handle it.
And seeing some people in the chat say like Io Tayo being bold. He says he's playing 60% Bogdanovich. Playing with fire, it's risky. Stone's on you for doing that. But we'll see. Do you have any strong leans about whether Bogdanovich and Jalen Johnson are going to play or sit?
I mean, that popped up last night. The illness did with Bogdanovich. It was while I was recording. I got to think that he's good to go. Jalen Johnson also, first time that he's been questionable. He was doubtful previously. I think he probably plays too. I feel a lot better about Bogdanovich's minutes upside than what I do for Jalen Johnson. So, like, considering we already have Johnson projected at 35 minutes, which I think is perfect. We've got Bogdanovich at 33. I feel more confident that Bogdanovich, shooting guard, small forward, 6,700, no late swap. If he ends up being the piece that I just see more paths for him being optimal than Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Johnson, you just go to the boom bust tool. And I mean, Jalen Johnson right now over on DraftKings, 13.9% optimal percentage. Pretty decent number. But then, you jump to Bogdanovich sitting at 19%, and the ownership has to be coming down. Yeah. You and I both think that that's going to be a lot lower. Him being in just benefits you so much more than Jalen Johnson at his price point and his positionality being in. So it's more worth it to be jamming a Bogdanovich than a Johnson, even if Johnson ends up being lower owned.
Got some super chats here. So that was, I know there was a lot more strategy than we normally talk about at the top of the show, but I mean, it's only the second non-late swap slate we've had in years. So definitely different ways to think about this slate. So let's get into your guys' questions, starting with Malcolm Revamp. And if you haven't done it yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Malcolm Revamp wants to know for NBA tiers, who are we liking? And then also he says, nice win last night, Eric. So let's see.
I didn't win jack shit. I don't know what he's talking about. What did I win? What did I win? Did I win a raffle that I don't know about?
Maybe he saw a nice mid cash you had last night. And he's like,
my wife went to bed. Like, I was like, hey, honey, I rolled over. She was just flat out snoring with Duke on her legs. And I'm like, well, I'm fucked. Great. So I won literally nothing at life yesterday.
Let's see if we got anybody in chat. Malcolm Revamp. I'm curious. Malcolm Revamp, just throw into the chat. What did you think Eric won last night? I'm interested to hear that. Tier 1 anyway for DK tiers, pretty easily Jokic.
Wish. Say that again. No, I didn't build out any tiers.
Okay, I'll go run through it then.
Go.
Tier 1,
fly through
Jokic. It. Tier 2, that is going to be Paulo Banchero for me. Tier 3, Jamal Murray. Tier 4, that is going to be Paul George. So Paul George fairly close to guys like Colin Sexton, Brandon Ingram, but just the potential that you could get James Harden rolled out. Give me Paul George there in tier 4. Tier 5, that is going to be John Collins. Tier 6, Keontae George. And also, let me double check. I'm pretty sure there's no late swap for tiers tonight either. Yeah. Yep, no late swap for tiers. So something you really want to consider when you're building some of these lineups is, if somebody pops up on the injury report, maybe might be a little bit too risky for you to want to play yourself. And definitely something that might make sense if, there's a couple of guys that are projected closer together. It's something that I think that you should really consider just going to the player who's not on the injury report to minimize some risk. Malcolm Revamp said mini slate. All right. He says you won the mini slate.
No, I did not. I can promise you I did not.
Malcolm Revamp wants to give Eric a win, and Eric's like, I
really appreciate it. I banked the $15 with a couple of my closest friends earlier this year. I've tied first for a showdown for, a little bit of money as well. That would be the list here at the moment. I wish I could be claiming credit for a bink that I did not have, but you know what? Such is life. I did not have it.
Congratulations, Eric, for abso-fucking-lutely nothing. Malcolm Revamp, we appreciate the super chat.
Happy Friday.
We appreciate it, man. Next question here. It is from Jamal Parker. He wants to know, Eric, how do you feel about Kelly Olynyk assist or a better play?
Not today. I looked at a couple of Kelly O props today and nothing. I actually almost ended up shorting him. Let me take a look over at Odd Chopper and see where it's sitting at here at the moment. Because again, Kelly Olynyk, everybody's a great play until they're not a great play. And again, there was some mores, and I think that on the less side of things is where I almost came in on, and then just ended up passing. Yeah, under 12.5 points, very, very slight expected value, 1.1% EV in the old EV tool over at Odd Chopper, -107 true odds, sitting at -105 on FanDuel. Not enough meat on the bone, I don't think.
I can go tell you right now what's the top play of the day.
Assists, 4.5 is like barely potentially there too.
Let's see. Anything that
why are they announcing all the UFC 301 stuff right now? What's going on?
Going on with what?
All the UFC 301. Why is that getting announced on Friday afternoon?
I would guess because they're doing I don't know, press conference or something.
You tell me. Pantoja fighting Steve Ursig. I didn't know Ursig was like in line to even have a title fight.
By the way, do you know Jamal? Does Jamal play on Prize Picks, Pick Six?
Let me see here.
Okay, do you know typically, Eric, when he asks you questions?
No. Let me see what he wants. Eric is just winning at life. Yeah. No, not yesterday. I wish I was. Yeah, he didn't say what he was playing over at. Again, if it's going to be sitting in that -105, -115 range, you just stay away over on Prize Picks. I don't think there's any reason to be forcing it in. So any pick'em site, period, regardless of what the payout is, you're just not getting enough relative to the true odds, to the actual odds of what's been projected out when you weight out all of the books and all of the pick'em sites. So I would be passing on anything Kelly Olynyk today.
All right. So Jamal, that is a no on Kelly Olynyk. What's your overall favorite prop on Prize Picks?
There were a couple. Herb Jones fantasy score ended up on a lot of them again, 21.5. I don't know why they keep putting it out 4 or 5 fantasy points lower, but that came out after my video, unfortunately. Otherwise, that 100% would have been on for the people. So hopefully you're able to take advantage of that. It was at 20.5. It's gone up a whole point. I like less than 16.5 points for CJ McCollum. I think that's a pretty strong play if that still remains. And then the last one, I love Trey Mann more than 23.5 fantasy score. It's FanDuel scoring over on Prize Picks. Think that's a really good one as well.
Freudian Slip says he's late to the show. Did he miss the exotic animation? So unfortunately, with Jordan calling out, I don't know that Mike has access to that particular animation yet. He doesn't. So once again, appreciate Mike for filling in, but kind of
I really like having Mike here.
Animation.
I love having
Kenny
Michael.
Wayne in chat wants to know, Eric, what's the exotic play of the night?
Go
so no
fuck
animation,
yourself, San
but you can
Diego.
still answer it.
No, I don't. I don't have to. There's no Jordan Klein here. There's no like, oh, crikey.
Exotic play of the night. Thanks, boys. Eric has to answer. I'm unsubscribing, according to Kenny Wayton in Discord.
How about this? Bogdan Bogdanovic. Do you want to play with fire? Do you like fire? Here's some fire. Bogdan Bogdanovic.
Let's see. So I ran a new set of sims with some of the updates that I put in for some of the ownership in the contest generator. And the exotic that I got the most of today, Simone Fontecchio. I know that people are probably going to be very sour on Fontecchio after what happened the other day, but his ownership has come down quite a bit, and he's somebody that I think the ownership he had the other day was egregiously high. There's no reason he should have been. I forget what the number was, like 48%, 48% or something like that. But it's more or less a similar situation for him, and his ownership has come down to closer to 20%, mostly because he was bad last game. So Fontecchio, I'm a little bit overweight to the field on him. He's an exotic that I like for today. Phil Senzig, who puts it in the basket, Eric? Lotion play of the night.
Put the lotion on the skin. Let's see. Keontae George.
DeJounte Murray.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. I am convinced DeJounte Murray is going to be crazy high owned. Because I love him. I was getting like 80% of him in the Sims running before. By the way, I added 25 more lineups because I'm just bored. And I'm like, oh yeah, it does lock. So like I don't have to do anything afterwards. So whatever. I am pretty positive DeJounte Murray gets steamed up. Don't you feel that way? I feel that way. I'm very nervous about it.
Not in my experience playing the $4. So far, every single iteration of the $4 that's been run, every piece of chalk is coming underweight to their projected ownership.
There's got to be a first for everything, Gregory. But yeah, you're probably right.
Not saying it's impossible. People might look at the layout of the slate in the same way I am and just saying, like, DeJounte Murray looks good. These guys are questionable. Just play DeJounte.
James Harden rolled out.
It's very possible that people are doing that, but that just hasn't been the case with the $4 this year. By the way, Harden, as you said, out. So look at that. This is something that we no longer have to worry about, is what to do with the James Harden situation. We loading up on Bones again?
100%.
All right. It's going to be another Bones night. So let's look at the rotations for the Clippers last night.
I mean, it was a lot of Bones Island doing ridiculous things, by the way. The most noticeable thing for me that stood out looking at the rotations, you got 28 minutes, but you had like a weird spot where then Norman Powell would have closed. I think he probably would have gotten up to 30 minutes. And that was like my whole thing with Norman Powell yesterday. I like Norman Powell as an under-owned potential target here. I don't think he gets crazy steamed up the same way that Bones Highland is going to be. Like, Bones Highland is probably the best value play on the slate now, bar none. Terrence Mann, not a good enough fantasy point per minute producer, but like I might fall into a couple of shares. But I know for a fact that if this news was going to break before lock, that Norman Powell, he's going to play 30 minutes in a competitive spot. And I think that's good enough for me. Yeah, it's not ideal. Having him come off the bench. But overall, Norman Powell's a guy that if you give me 30 minutes of him, 5,200, I get that that's going to look wonky. I get that it's not going to be like the greatest spot of all time here, but I'm going to take his fantasy point per minute rate here. He's at 0.82. We were putting him down to 0.75, but that was with all three of them in. I've got to be boosting that up here north of the 0.84 number. And I think I'm definitely going to be getting myself to a little bit of him. But I guess the main thing is like Kawhi, Zubats, George, like these other starters. Like the Zubats thing freaks me out a little bit too, where they could go small if they go Larry Nance and do whatever the hell else. But 32 minutes yesterday, he just did nothing with them.
All of this scares me on the tail end of a back-to-back. We have to play Bones, right? Bones, easy go and jam.
Easy plug and play. Yes. But everything else scares me.
Paul George minutes scare me. Kawhi minutes scare me. Zubats minutes scare me because he's dealt with a bunch of injuries this year, tail end of back-to-back. I think Zubats is likely going to project really well. He's only played a limited amount of minutes with Harden off the court this year, 1.44 DraftKings points per minute, but don't really know what to make of that considering it's only been 33 minutes that I'm looking at here. But if we go ahead and look at some of the other information here, I want to look at some of the usage rate here. All right, so usage without James Harden this year. Paul George, 29% usage. And then we've got Kawhi Leonard is sitting at, I had Westbrook off. I'm going to remove that. There's no point.
Yeah, I took Russ off as well as I'm running everything.
I just want the bigger sample size. So here we go. Kawhi, 26.4% usage rate this year with James Harden off the court. Paul George, 28.8%. Same deal as last night. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, both definitely look better in the absence of James Harden. In hindsight last night, this is sort of results oriented, but sort of not at the same time too. I wish I would have had more of Paul George because I didn't realize there was going to be such a big ownership gap between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And with James Harden off the court, Paul George has a higher usage rate this year than Kawhi.
Yep. It was basically like 16-8, which again, probably shouldn't have existed as is, but I'm not going to beat myself up too much about it. I'm probably with you though, where it would have been probably the sharper situation for sure. James Harden, Russell Westbrook. I mean, this is, it's just going to be jamming Bones in this $4 now.
Yep. Jam Bones, all the Bones. He's definitely somebody that we're going. He's going to be my most rostered player once I update for everything. Same. I assume maybe I get to like DeJounte Murray or like THT a comparable amount or something like that. But I'm going to get to Bones. I'm fairly confident saying he's going to be my most rostered player. Let's get back to some of your guys' super chats while we wait for the data update. Brian Sullivan, and it'll be updated in like a minute or so, maybe even sooner, and then we can reference it. Brian Sullivan, sup, fellas? How do I get Bones to show up in my exposures? Yeah, don't have to worry about it now. He's about to show up in the contest generator and the Sims tool now that James Harden has been ruled out. But yeah, it is something that there isn't the best solve for at the moment when we've got situations with players who are questionable. But for now, it's a very relevant question, Brian, but we don't have to worry about it. Bones Highland's about to show up in a bunch of lineups.
Sure.
Heyo. Michael Pizzulli
Hello.
logged in late. Any read on Harden? Yeah, he's going to sit. We just got I assume he must have left that super chat like 30 seconds before Harden was rolled out.
Me could have been nicer about the way that you said that, Craig.
Okay, I'll let you answer. What do you think is going to happen with James Harden tonight, Eric?
It's going to fucking sit.
That was very mean of you.
I know.
Malcolm
sorry.
Revamp on FanDuel Sportsbook. Who is the double-double picks? If you had to bet one player to have a double-double tonight, Eric, who would you go to?
It's going to be John Collins because I did bet it. Even money FanDuel.
All right.
Even money FanDuel, John Collins.
It would certainly look better as well if Hendricks is rolled out.
Oh, for sure. That's kind of part of why it projected out well for me. I just basically put Hendricks as a 50-50 to play or not, and even money on FanDuel, John Collins was too good to pass up.
Next question we have here. It is a super chat from Active Guru. He wants to know our top 2 options at each position for DraftKings. So going to have to update for the Bones Highland situation, but I already know he's going to be one of my most rostered point guards. So point guard, it's going to be DeJounte Murray and Bones Highland.
Sure is.
Shooting guard. That for me is going to be Talen Horton-Tucker and Colin Sexton.
Oh, so you just did the 2-for-1 at the old Vaughn's, at the old High V, at the old, what's the grocery store out your way? Where do you?
I mean, there's Whole Foods.
Oh, you have Whole Foods too? There you go.
I get everything from
ShopRite.
Costco though, because I'm
Costco,
becoming a middle-aged white man.
$5 chicken. I mean, the $5 chicken is the best deal on planet Earth. And then the big thing of chicken noodle soup too. It's my favorite.
Can't eat that. There's dairy in it, but they've got a lot of good shit
Sucks
over
for
at
you.
Costco. Not a sponsor of the show, but I advocate for Costco. Eitan, if you're
Mhm.
listening, I know you're working on like sex toys as a sponsor. Think about Costco if you could reach out
I
to
would
them.
much rather have Costco.
What do you have at shooting guard?
Colin Sexton.
Who's your 2 though? He asked for 2 at each position.
Oh, Talen Horton-Tucker.
All right. Small forward for me, that is going to be, I mean, I'll see when everything updates here, but
Paul George.
I'll say
I updated it.
Paul George and Fontecchio.
Yep. Paul George, Talen Horton-Tucker.
Power forward, I'm thinking he's probably going to be Zion and Kawhi.
Power forward is just a wasteland. I love John Collins for tournaments. Absolutely love John Collins for tournaments. I am way overweight on John Collins, and Aaron Gordon is number 2.
Center for me, that is currently Clint Capella and Bam Adebayo.
Yep, Bam Adebayo, Clint Capella, and Bruno Fernando. My lord, what a time to be alive.
Follow-up super chat from Jamal Parker says, you guys and Josh won me $311 last night. Thanks, Jamal. Love to see it. Nice hit. Love to see when you guys are profitable. Also, if you guys haven't signed up for the lineup generator package, now that we're seeing some more of these non-late swap slates, kind of the ideal time to use the lineup generator because you don't have to worry about what happens after lock. You're just going to build lineups for you that are projected to be plus EV in our sims. So sign up for the lineup generator package using the link that we have below. If you guys are somebody who's late on time, maybe you don't have all the time to watch live before lock and keep up to date on all the NBA injury news and all that, sign up for the lineup generator package. Less than $15, builds lineups for you. You could also look at our player projections and ownership projections within there. Also gets you access to our Discord channel. Phil Still, last man in, Butler or Kawhi. That's going to be Kawhi for me.
Why?
Let's get to some of our Discord questions and see what we have in Discord. By the way, not a surprise, but starting lineups out for the Pistons, and it does have Cade in it. He was listed as questionable earlier today, but he's going to be good to go. Some questions that we have in here. First one is from Parker Boy. Since Trent is in, should we get off quickly? Yeah, quickly is not somebody I'm super interested in today. I have 5% of him, and that was before the Bones Highland news. At most, I'll have like 2 lineups or something with quickly.
I mean, you have to understand, last time out was not Orlando. Like, you got to be a little bit matchup pending, right? Because it was Detroit that he was super popular. I don't really see a crazy, like, I think he's an all right tournament play, but like the price has gone up. He gets a much worse matchup. I mean, there's no way that he's going to be like close to the same projection. We've got him at 43. He was projected around like 50, if I remember last time around the block. So different situations, different matchups, and Gary Trent potentially. Well, Gary Trent back. I don't know why I keep saying potentially. He is playing basketball tonight.
Yeah, Gary Trent is going to be in, and that also cuts into quick, at least a little bit, somebody else to take shots, somebody else to play minutes. And then Parker Boyle says, how do you feel about Keldon Johnson points for pick 6?
I'll take a look for him here. I have so much pick 6 exposure today because, again, pick 6, you can late swap today, which is so ironic that pick 6 is going to be where I take advantage of the Atlanta-Utah news. What a time to be alive. Keldon Johnson over on pick 6. Let me take a look at this. He is at 14.5. Let me run my thing quick.
I'm so jealous that you get to play pick 6.
Dude, it's so incredible. It is an absolute print fest. Promo code LPL if you want to come join the fun and you have pick 6 in your state. Truly a print factory at the moment. And people are like, oh, the payouts. I'm like, I'm locking in minus 250 props as duos in like 4 pieces and just getting way better odds that you're going to get at any book. So it is truly revelatory. I don't care about the payouts. You have to stop complaining and find an actual problem. Keldon Johnson, I like less on it. 14.5, it would make the cut. You have to play more than two. I would not play it in a 2-pick circle because basically as you're playing 2 picks, they have to be drastically better. Like you would want to get to like minus 180 as like the cutoff because you can find those over on pick 6. I wouldn't play something that's like minus 125, minus 130 there. But if you correlate the card or if you build out up to 6 plays, I would be all right having that on the card for pick 6.
All right. There you have it, Jamal. See what else we have. Don't give up news I'm getting for tomorrow. All right.
Ron Kopp, minus 250, chalky much? Here's the thing. It doesn't change the payout over on pick 6. It's all peer-to-peer. You're playing against other people, so you just want the card to freaking win. And you want other cards to fail. So sometimes if you think something is going to be a super popular play, you can go to the opposite side and it's going to exponentially change your payout. I really only do that for 1-game sets, but for these large slates, find the winners. There aren't enough people finding the best plays on the board on a day-to-day basis. So be the person who finds the best plays. If it's minus 250, you should be celebrating because you're getting paid way better in terms of your payout than what that number actually would be at a book.
See what else we have in here as far as questions. We got some super chats that just came in. We got Discord questions here. Mr. Cool Cam wants to know favorite plays on FanDuel for each position. Do you FanDuel lineups built out, Eric, or just the DraftKings ones?
I built FanDuel ones. I'm just not playing there.
Okay. So for FanDuel, I've been rerunning lineups here. So I do have lineups for the updated Clippers news. So my most rostered players.
Bones Highland. Oh my God, 100%.
Point guard, Bones Highland.
Oh, by a mile. Yeah.
Shooting guard, that is Paul George.
Gary Trent. What a time to be alive.
Small forward would be Paul George, but then Paulo Banchero.
Jimmy Butler.
Power forward, Zion Williamson.
Paulo Banchero / Aaron Gordon, same ownership.
And then center, Yusuf Nurkic.
Bam Adebayo.
And then we also got a super chat from Pierre. He wants to know our favorite plays at each position on FanDuel. So we did just do that. Let's talk about some low-owned players. Is there anybody who's picking up not very much ownership on FanDuel that you were getting to, just because we already answered our top plays at each position? So maybe there's another little wrinkle we could add for Pierre here. How are you looking at some of the contrarian options you might like to get to on FanDuel?
So FanDuel, we'll see where George and Leonard end up landing when it's all said and done. But how do you not love Wemby? 11-2, but you get 3 points for blocks and steals. He has to be, like, when you think about the difference between DraftKings and FanDuel, he's such an upgraded play. He's only projected, 52? It's a very difficult matchup against Jokic. Jokic probably going to fool around, screw around, get a triple-double, make him look silly a couple of times. So Victor Wembanyama looks pretty damn good out on the floor. So I'll take that leverage. I will take Victor Wembanyama and run with that over on FanDuel. 11-2. Hopefully the price tag shies some people away.
Let's see. So for me, players that aren't picking up that much ownership, here's one that looks pretty good on FanDuel. Jonathan Isaac, $3,700 projected for ownership in the teens. he's one of these guys he's like the better version of Matisse Thybulle in terms of he can get a bunch of defensive stats really quickly. That's always favorable over on FanDuel. So Jonathan Isaac is somebody who I was getting exposure to a little bit overweight to the field. Let me see who else. Sort by my exposures. And so he's one. Let's see, low owned.
Another guy that on FanDuel, I might have to try to, is everything filled on FanDuel or not? Because I actually like my FanDuel lineups looking at them more than I like my DK lineups.
Let me see.
Now that I reran everything.
Marcus Sasser at $4,300 on FanDuel, projected for 6% ownership. He closed last game over Cade. Now, in hindsight, Cade was apparently not totally 100%, but Sasser played so well that they were confident. After he played something like the last 16 minutes of the game, he was the leading scorer for the Pistons in the fourth quarter. Just based on the low ownership he has and how well he played last game and that they were willing to close, I wouldn't be surprised if that means that Sasser's earned himself a couple of extra minutes today.
I got one crazy one off the board one. Mo Wagner is the min on FanDuel, 3,500 with power forward center eligibility. Pretty high optimal percentage there. I don't see many $3,500 players ever anymore that I would. Oh, hang on. Nope. I reran that incorrectly. He's 4,500. I had that incorrect on my sheet. Cool. Don't play Mo Wagner on FanDuel. Bet we had that talk.
All right. There we have. Never mind. Not Mo Wagner, but I do like Sasser as a contrarian play there for you, Pierre. Next question, Malcolm Reevamp, Odd Shopper. How do I know which is the right picks? Yeah, so you could just sort by the OS rating, and it's basically listed in terms of what we have is the best overall projected options of the day over on Odd Shopper. So anything that's plus EV is going to have an OS rating attached to it, and that's the way to find the best overall picks. Just sort it by that OS rating. Melissa Harvey says, took 11th in the $4 last night for an excellent profit. Thanks to you guys and Josh. Thanks for the great content as always. Melissa, love to see you killing it out there. And I think Melissa also had a good hit not all that long ago, if I remember, like a week ago or something.
She did.
Jay, DeJounte Murray or Jamal Murray? I prefer DeJounte Murray.
DeJounte Murray is very good at basketball.
Jamal Murray is also a good point guard option, but DeJounte Murray is going to be a real core play for me.
Fact.
All right. Got to rerun some lineups.
I'm coming around to your side of the fence with DeJounte Murray. I'm probably just going to jam him now. Screw it.
Stokes, who's the best pay up option to get to tonight? That's DeJounte Murray for me.
Yeah, probably is. It's weird to say.
Is there anybody else that you're prioritizing as a spend up?
Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, a little bit of Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, if we're considering Kawhi and Paul George in the 8K range as pay up options, then yeah, for sure. You can consider them as well. I'm not exactly sure you're considering the cutoff there, but my most rostered pay up option, Stokes, it will be DeJounte Murray. Hey, I'm Drew. Hey, guys, what are the DK cash plays, considering that there is no late swap? Bones Highland for sure. Absolutely have to roster Bones Highland. DeJounte Murray, somebody also absolutely have to roster in cash games. Do not touch the questionable guys in cash.
Yep, not a single questionable guy should ever be in your cash lineup unless, like, you have a very, very good reason. Like, they're a flat 3K and they would be projecting for 40 or some shit, but that is not today. So that isn't something you have to worry about. You might have to worry about that come like a month from now. Last couple regular season games, you might get some very suspect human beings that show up in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, it's like, are they at the stadium or not? But yeah, there's zero reason that you should be doing that today.
Deuce Trey, by the way, I got this question 3 times now. He wants to know what the best FanDuel plays are by position. Yeah, so for me, it was Bones Highland, Paul George, Paulo Banchero, Zion Williamson, and Yusuf Nurkic. What was it for you, Eric, over on FanDuel?
Bones Highland, point guard, shooting guard, Paul George now. I just updated my stuff. I'm going to try to get in some stuff. Jimmy Butler now, small forward. Interesting. Center is Jokic now. And power forward is Zion. Completely different lineups than what I just said because everything finally got updated. Not finally, meaning that like we finally got an update. I'm just saying on my end, I had run some lineups like right when that news dropped and then reran it there. Completely different stuff. Wemby, I love for tournaments. Just get to a ton of Wemby.
Next question here is from M Grizzly, who wants to know, what are you doing on this non-late swap slate that is different than if it were a late swap slate? Any booster manipulations that we should be making in the Sims tool? Yeah, so I ran through this at the top if you weren't listening at the time, M Grizzly, but the Clippers part doesn't matter anymore. Don't have to make any kind of alterations to James Harden or anything like that. In the contest generator, give downgrade boosts to Hendricks, and by the way, this is in the contest generator, so that these players will show up less in lineups because they're going to be lower owned than their projected ownership. Jalen Johnson, Bogdanovich, and Taylor Hendricks. They're all questionable to play, and I think that's going to lower their actual ownership. So I gave them all 3 thumbs downs in the contest generator so that it would change what my projected ownerships to those guys were. And then I also gave an ROI upgrade boost. Now, we're talking about the Sims. After you run everything through the contest generator in the Sims, I'm giving an ROI upgrade boost to DeJounte Murray just because he really does stand to benefit if we see Jalen Johnson and or Bogdanovich rolled out. And he's also already looks really strong.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would want to get to that you wouldn't otherwise get to if you knew those two were out? They started Garrison Matthews last time, which never is a fun feeling.
Difference to me, right? Like I'm not not trying to play Matthews.
Nor should you.
Let me think. Well, I'd be playing if I knew Bogdanovich was in and Johnson was out. I'd play a shit ton of Bogdanovich.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Let me think in terms of other stuff, though. I mean, there's not like one guy that I'd be getting to a lot more of, but it'd be like Clint Capella would look a little bit better.
Bruno Fernando would be the same, probably. Yeah, I'm just going through.
So there'd be like a little more. It would be Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter. They'd both look a little bit better.
Yeah, Hunter.
So I do think you can make a case for, and actually I might do this right now as I'm running my final sim. You do a little bit of an upgrade boost to DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella as well.
Yep, I just thought it was a good conversation piece because obviously we've talked about only one side of it. It's like, oh, okay, well, we'll get to DeJounte Murray. Yeah, everybody's going to get to DeJounte Murray, but I was curious if you were going to get to any Hunter, anything else. Vic Krejci, can't really play him at the price point now either. Yep, definitely no for me, dog.
The people I definitely don't want to play are the ones who are just like totally dead in the scenario that these guys were questionable play. I want guys who already look okay that would look even better if the players are ruled out.
Facts, Gregory. Spit facts.
That's what I'm looking for. Next question we got is from Miami Highlight. He wants to know how much of Bruno Fernando are we getting to?
Tons. Metric, unbelievable, way too much tons.
Yeah, I have a little bit under 30% of Bruno Fernando right now.
I have more. I'm playing 50 lineups now too. Ooh, scary.
Next question here, Einsteinium. Do we think in this matchup they could go with Amir Coffey over Bones?
Nope.
Even though Bones was already confirmed the starter. Nah, Bones over Coffey.
Yeah, he's a dude that they've been kind of like, they told him a while ago, you're going to be out of the rotation, and then brought him back out of nowhere. He's not good, but he has played well and he will put up stats. So like for our purposes, he is very good. Whereas Amir Coffey is the exact opposite. I know Amir Coffey's had a couple of games where he's knocked down all of his corner threes, and it is what it is. A lot of that was James Harden out there creating, and he was in the absence of a Kawhi Leonard or a Paul George. Kawhi and Paul George not out there creating the same way James Harden would be for corner three guys. So for me, Amir Coffey not going to be the dude.
Next question that we have in here is from Gray. He wants to know, what are our thoughts on Zubats for FanDuel? Zubats. I liked Zubats as a contrarian option last night. I can tell you it didn't go all that well. He's in about 10% of my lineups today.
On FanDuel, he is?
Actually, FanDuel and DraftKings ended up with around the same amount.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I will tell you here.
Keep in mind the difference too. FanDuel doesn't have the late game. So that's one thing that kind of offsets the no utility spot.
Yeah, 6,100. I have 0 on FanDuel right now.
I've got some.
I don't mind it. He is my favorite player in the NBA for what he has done for me.
And then we've got a question here. Official Chris Presto channel says that he likes DeJounte Porter today. Do you think he's a good play tonight at low ownership? The price has gone up to a point where I don't have interest anymore. I was playing him when he was lower owned, because if you remember a couple of games ago, he was cheaper than this and he was only 7% owned. Now he's gotten to be more expensive. He was super popular last slate, but no for me on DeJounte Porter at this point.
Can't do it anymore.
It's also a center spot, so you're taking a premium real estate.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Parker Boy saying, thanks for the help. Gonna cross his fingers. Lindy's locks for the win. Yeah, if you guys aren't checking out Eric's video, it is the best betting video you guys could get for all-encompassing information, breaking down every single NBA game each night. Lindy's leans, likes, and locks over on the Odd Shopper YouTube channel. Also, while you're here, like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel. And don't forget, we're going to be over on in playback in about 5 minutes from now. Mod Dub T want.
Oh, they want the nuke in the night. We don't have a ton of time. I'll throw in John Collins.
DeJounte Murray.
Love it.
Mod Dub T, can you go over Utah ownership? Anything crazy you're doing with Utah?
Let's go to. No, I am playing tons of THT like everybody else. The positionality, the price point, everything makes a ton of sense to get there. I have a little bit of Bryce Sensabaugh, which I don't think the field's getting to in any way, shape, or form. Just stands to maybe play 32, 33 minutes. I already have him in for 29 minutes, so that is pretty cool. But I'm not playing Hendricks. I don't think it's worth the price trying to get to 5,200 for him. So I'm playing tons of Sexton, tons of Collins, tons of Keontae George, tons of THT. So yeah, 4 pieces right there that I have over 40% of.
Yeah, THT, Colin Sexton. Let me see if there is.
Sexton, I do not have more than 40% of. I'm a damn dirty liar. I have 32%.
Yeah, THT, Colin Sexton, Keontae George. Is there anything else? John Collins. Those are the 4 guys I have double-digit exposure to from the team. And those are also the order. The order I said them is the order that I'm rostering them in.
Love.
Well, we're at 14. Says he has Keontae George and $500. Should he upgrade Keontae George to anybody?
And $500? Oh my God. I mean, you have Kawhi Leonard access then, right?
Amount.
You like who?
I said I just like Keontae George a good amount.
Yeah, I like Keontae George a ton. I've got 46% of him, so I hope he drops down, gets his eagle on.
One thing I haven't checked is the $4 going to Phil, or is it going to overlay tonight?
I don't know.
To see how people would react to this slate with a bunch of players on the injury report and no late swap.
I hope it doesn't, Phil, so they don't do this again.
I'm going to check that right now. Good information.
We're in pack. I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty positive it's Paul George.
Yeah. It is. Nope, it's pretty much full.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting. So for reference, the other day when they were on the $4 and there was late swap, it did not fail. Make of that what you will. Make of that what you will.
I hate it here.
Dan06 saying bunch of players on the injury report. Yeah, you got the Atlanta-Utah situation. For a slate with 6 games, it's pretty big. It definitely impacts how I look at the slate heading into lock. I know you mean like compared to normal, there are slates with more people on the injury report, but in terms of impact on a slate, it makes a difference. Makes a big difference. Are your lineups all set?
I got them both in, both sets. Got a little something on FanDuel, just sweat it, and then DK ready to rock.
I uploaded mine as well. Who's most likely to just screw you over completely today?
Well, probably the guy I have 100% of. If I had to guess, Bones Highland has the best chance of screwing me over. He puts up 20. I'm probably not going to win anything. But 100% Bones, 74% DeJounte Murray, 62% THT, 46% Keontae George, 44% John Collins, 38% Jokic is interesting, 32% Sasser, just a price play, 30% Bruno Fernando. It did come down a little bit for me there. Paul George, 30%, Zion, 30%, Simone Fontecchio, 28%, Colin Sexton, 28%, Kawhi, 20%. I feel pretty good. The one guy that I'm taking a little bit of an aggressive stand, Larry Nance is going to have a just breakout game sooner rather than later if they keep doing this second half start shit. I have 16% of him. I almost full out jammed him today, but I don't think it's really worth it.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for us. Once again, if you have not done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go check out Playback. Going to be over there hanging out, sweating the games, and maybe tilting some dumb injury news that pops up that we can't react to. So we'll see. Maybe we lose a bunch of money in real time, or all of a sudden somebody we're rostering just isn't playing, or we can't make proper alterations. So go check out the Playback show, and we're going to have some fun over there. Have a great night, guys. And if you're not going to join us on Playback, you're making a mistake, but have a good weekend.